Hello, hopefully you listen to this video. If your child is taking Trig Pre Calculus, trigonometry and pre-calculus at Incline High School from Mr. Resney, I am Mr. Resney. So I'd like to talk to you about this class a little bit and let you know what it is you're going to be looking at, what your child's looking at, and things that can help your child, and things to worry about. I've taught all the math classes at this high school as had available to it for the last 20 years. The only exception of AP Stats, and I can tell you, my opinion, most students find this the hardest class of all the math classes we teach. That includes things like calculus. Why is it hard? Well, first of all, before I do that, let me sell you on the class before I tell you the hard part, which is not as much fun. This class teaches the part of the SAT between roughly the 600 on the Math SAT and the 800 on the Math SAT. Similar sort of scale on the ACT. Both the SAT and ACT is a Trig Pre-Calculus test. Okay, it has an out of 2 on it, a lot of out of 2 on it. I think it has more out of 2 than Trig Pre-Calc. If you want a high score on it, you have to know the Trig and the Pre-Calculus that we're going to do. In addition to that, we're going to go back over algebra in great detail. So the kids are going to have a really good chance at that SAT, ACT test. And kids that are in Trig Pre-Calc can generally do pretty well on it. Second reason is if you're going to the university of whatever, there's two things you could do from this class. One, you could go to calculus next year, and Trig Pre-Calc is really important because we use it in calculus. And the second reason is if you don't go to calculus, you go to university whatever, you're going to take a class called University Math or College Algebra. Both of those have a chunk of Trig Pre-Calc, and so as long as they take it their freshman year, if they've already taken this class, they're in really good shape to pass it. In fact, UNR's curriculum is extraordinarily similar to what, and you know, we cover everything that would be in that class and then a little bit more. So what was I worried about not telling you up front? Here's what I was worried about telling you. I tell the kids this. I said, look, this class in some ways is silly math tricks. Okay, it is really hard in places. We're doing problem solving. We're using math in very strange ways. Things that a student can't imagine when they walk in the door are things that were going to become commonplace by the end of this year. And so there's that. And for some students who are really good at math, this class is going to be weird enough that they're going to be starting to feel it. Okay, and if they haven't learned good math habits like writing down your work or making sure you do your homework every day, this class can sometimes grab those kids that we thought were in really good shape and cause them some trouble. The second type of kid I'm worried about is the kid that's on the other end of the spectrum. Algebra 2 is hard for them. Okay, if Algebra 2 is hard for them, then they may have not gotten the skills they needed in order to pass Trig Pre-Calc, in which case they're going to find every homework assignment is a drudgery. Every homework assignment is harder than it should be, because while we're doing trig, almost every problem that's hard in this class is also going to have some algebra 2 to it. Again, reminding us how to do algebra 2, but it is just part of the trig curriculum is you're going to use the algebra 2 on other things. And so if you struggle with algebra 2, that's going to get you some too. So watch, look at your kid. If your kid is drowning, get them in for help immediately. Okay. I generally get there by 6 a.m. in the morning. The doors unlock at 6:30, so it's really easy for a student to walk in at 6:30, come into my room, and get help. Given the land of COVID, and I haven't talked about COVID yet, given the land of virtual learning as we're doing, I expect to see a lot of kids in the morning. I expect to see a lot of kids after school. I expect to see a lot of kids at lunch. They're welcome. Okay, they need to come in and get that help, and I'm perfectly happy to help them. That's part of the job's to teach them, and that's honest. Bring them in. Okay. If you think you can't talk them into it, send me an email, and I will talk them into it if I can, and we'll work that out. The class is going to be structured so that we are going along at a reasonable clip. The problem with going a reasonable clip, that means that when they're supposedly virtually learning at home, they need to be part of the class. They need to be part of the exchange that's going on in class. They need to be able to ask questions. They need to be able to see what's going on. They need to hear the students' questions. They need to see the students' answers, and then we need to talk about how those are done. So because of that, they need to be there at the time that Trig meets every day. Okay, whether they're in their class sitting down or they're at home or wherever they happen to be, they need to be part of that class. They already have all the paper for the first 4 chapters in their possession. I'm going to try to keep them about 2 months ahead on paper because we don't know if we're going to shut down. I'm also not supposed to be handling papers right before I give it to them, so they have huge wad of papers already in a notebook, ready to go, and they're already working their way through it. So that's the general paper. The official textbook for this class is terrible. It's not just bad; it's a whole different level of bad. It's truly is terrible. The good news is I've left out on accident a set of textbooks that I'm not allowed to give them, but if they walk off with one, it's actually very helpful. Several of them have already gotten them. I would recommend them, given our digital environment. It's pretty important. You know, it could be some kids are going to need that more than usual. Now, expect your kids when they're online to be talking, because I'm going to call on them. Expect them to ask questions. I hope they ask questions. The biggest problem, the biggest struggle we're going to have for this class is the way teachers teach is we ask kids questions. We look at what they're doing. We look at the looks on their faces when they hear something, and we go, aha, this kid needs help. And, you know, digitally speaking, we're going to have a tough time seeing that. They can see my whiteboard when I'm writing. They can hear the students' questions. They can see the students' answers. They can hear what I'm saying. They can see me lecture. They can see what I'm writing on the board. They can do all those things. The thing that's missing is when a kid's at home, digitally speaking, it's going to be really difficult to keep track of a kid who doesn't want to ask questions. And so encourage them to do so. I'm going to keep encouraging them to do so. And I will call on them as best I can as we go through this. And again, hopefully, as we all get better, this will go away and we'll be back in school. But it's a pretty difficult subject at that time. Okay? They should have homework every day. The attendance policy is pretty straightforward. They're going to do an assignment in class, right? Because they're going to be digitally there or they're going to be sitting in class. Either way, that assignment's due by midnight of that same day. Okay? Since we did it in class, that's just a matter of taking a picture of it, putting it in Teams. Okay? So if they're at home, take a picture, put it in Teams. That's how they register their attendance. Okay? More importantly, it gives me a chance to look at their work, because remember, the feedback's the problem, right? So if I need to look at what they're doing so I can say, okay, this kid needs more help with this when I see them the next day. So if they're doing virtually, it becomes doubly important they turn in their work that night, because the morning after I can kind of look through the work and go, okay, I need this kid and this kid to answer questions about this type of problem for really early on when we're still talking about heavy problems. Okay. I think that's pretty much the structure, as it were. If your kid needs help, if you think the kid needs help, you want to get a hold of me. Email's the easiest way. I'm rresney@washowschools.net. If you forget that, it's on your syllabus. If you forget that, you can easily, Incline High School has a website. All the teachers' emails are there. It's really easy to find us at that location. And normally about this time, I'd say, do you have any questions? I probably forgot something I was supposed to say. One other thing, calculators. It's nice if they have a graphing calculator. They actually don't need one for this class. I will check out graphing calculators if they need one, and they can certainly have that for the whole entire year. It's actually kind of important to get used to the calculator they're going to use on the SAT or ACT. Those are time tests. For a lot of kids, the time isn't that big a deal, but for some kids, it really is a big deal, and having a calculator that they're not familiar with is probably not a great idea. Okay. I got nothing. Oh, SAT tests. Have them take them. Well, this is my normal advice. COVID-19, this may change, but my thinking is, as always, May, right? Because we're going to do a review of all the algebra 2, especially tricky stuff they tend to forget, and we're going to go through all the trig, right? So, and May is going to be the primo math moment. You're like, well, what next year they're going to take calculus? Yeah, calculus isn't on the SAT or the ACT. That doesn't help them. Okay, so the Trig Pre Calc May test. If your kid is like a super studious, likes to study, that sort of kid, you want to look at the ACT test, especially they did well in the ACT test we had in March, and then they might not take it at all. If they're a kid that loves working out puzzles, maybe doesn't pay too much attention in his classes, they should. That's the SAT for you. Okay. Again, anything else you got question-wise, please send me an email. I'll be happy to answer them because usually I ask questions at this point. I have no way to know what might still be out there. Okay, so please feel free to send it. Bye. Thank you for your time.